The Golden State Warriors got some great news after they survived the Minnesota Timberwolves comeback attempt last night. Got a big win. Got to talk about that. And then on the back half of today's show, got a new trade report from an NBA insider that has a couple names that Golden State's keeping tabs on as we're less than a month away from February 6th trade deadline. All that and more on today's edition of Warriors Today by Chat Sports. But before we get into it, guys, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. If you're a diehard Golden State Warriors fan, you're going to love what we got going on here at Warriors Today. And I was taking a look at a couple of Chat Sports NBA channels that we have here, and we're getting cooked in this month in subscribers gained. The Heat Report, Celtics Today, they're kicking our butts. And they go live way more than we do here at the channel. So if you guys want us to go live more for Warriors games, make sure you subscribe for daily news and rumors. And we'll get started with today's show. What's going on, Dub Nation? You're watching Warriors Today by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Tyler Smith. And on today's show, man, great news for Golden State. I know it was a little bit of a scary win last night over the Minnesota Timberwolves, but they got it done. They made the plays they needed to in the clutch. And specifically, this guy right here made the plays in the clutch, Steph Curry. And what he said after the game kind of rejuvenated me a little bit in terms of what I think this Golden State team can do moving forward. He said, anyone who thinks I'm okay being on an average basketball team is insane. I'm glad to hear that from Steph Curry. I'm glad to hear that he still believes that this Golden State Warriors team can win basketball games and win them at a high clip. We just got to see that more often. We saw it last night. Golden State did win 116 to 115. It got really scary at the end there. Golden State turned the ball over late on an inbounds pass that got muddled up between Gary Payton II and Moses Moody. But hey, they pulled out the win. Steph made a big shot down the stretch, and they didn't have to go home a loser on this road trip. They end up going 2-2. And you know what? They had a couple of really great performances that I want to talk about on today's show. Obviously, Steph balled out 31 and 8 on 7 of 12 from 3. Like, he was absolutely on fire, and he was hitting shots like that you continue to see him hit day in and day out. Like, this is a guy who's carrying this Golden State team on his back, and you continue to see him make big shot after big shot, setting up teammates. He has so much gravity pulled to him on defense to where, Golden State players, they just get wide open. You saw a ton of open threes from Dennis Schroeder, Buddy Hield, Moses Moody, Guy Santos got a couple of looks. Like, Steph just creates so much more openness within this offense, and it allows the rest of the teammates to thrive. Great to see Steph continue on that path. Wiggs had a really good game, and one of his homecomings, right? He didn't play so well when they went up and played the Toronto Raptors, but this time, returning home to the Minnesota Timberwolves, he had a big-time game, 24 points, 10 of 12 from the free throw line. So it was great to see him attacking the rim, right? Because Golden State ranks super low in free throws attempted per game. They also rank at the bottom of the league completely in free throw percentage. So great to see Wiggins being aggressive there. They're going to continue to need that with Jonathan Kuminga out of the lineup. Buddy Hield, great to see him resurge a little bit, 50% from three-point range. He was a +8, so he gave you good stuff on both ends. He was a part of a couple different Warrior runs. Love to see that from him. TJD, 15 rebounds. Clap it up for TJD because he's really taken the starting role over the past couple of weeks. He's kind of ran with it, man. We know he's not the most offensively gifted player, doesn't create a ton outside of lob threats and rolls to the rim. But, man, he's doing his job on the defensive end and on the glass. 2 blocks last night as well. Love what I've seen from TJD. Hopefully he can continue to improve upon that and, keep taking that role in stride if the Warriors were to trade for another big man. And then Moses Moody came in last night, played 26 minutes. I mean, when Moses Moody gets a bigger opportunity, you're going to see more success from the guy. It's just plain and simple. He has the untapped potential that Golden State has been looking for. And last night he showed it, man. 4 or 6 from the field, a +7, 11 points. Like, I got to see more from Moody. But you know what I also need to see? 2 wins in a row. I need to see 2 wins in a row from this Golden State team. Because, a win is fun. A win is great, especially when it's on national TV. But what happens when things come back down to reality in the following game? Like, usually Golden State just goes back in their lulls. They can't put together consistent 48 minutes of good basketball and good offense specifically. The only 2 times they've won 2 in a row this year were back at the beginning of the month, January 2nd and January 4th. And then the only other time, most recently, was November 20th and November 22nd. So Golden State really has to put together some consistent win streaks here if they want to get back into the play-in and hopefully playoff race because there's still not that many games out of it. But where do the Golden State Warriors go from here, right? Steph was talking up his teammates. Steph was talking up this team's ability to win games and beat anybody in this league. However, is there going to be a trade? Remember his comments a couple of days ago that he doesn't want the team to get desperate and make any wild decisions as far as mortgaging draft capital, mortgaging some young talent on the roster. But that doesn't mean that the Golden State Warriors aren't active in the NBA trade market. They just don't want to give up any of their most prized possessions. Here's what Steph had to say about his comments from a couple of days ago. He said, "It's not our job to worry about trades on a daily basis. And these 3 weeks before the trade deadline, our job is to win as many games as possible. Take whatever I said, I still stand on it. But that doesn't mean you're not in a situation where you're trying to get better and make the appropriate moves that help you do that. Mike knows that. We've talked about it. That's the expectation for me trying to help the team where we want to go. Again, that doesn't mean you're reckless. Trade machines are fun, but what does that actually look like?" And, he was talking about the people who were, fishing trade ideas out there. He's probably talking about me specifically, but he did say the Twitter fingers need to show up. So it's a good thing I'm on YouTube. Steph wasn't addressing me with those comments. I'm just kidding, though. I throw a ton of trade ideas out there on the daily because I think this Golden State team needs to get better. And Steph isn't saying, though, that Golden State is inactive on the trade market. He's not saying that the Golden State's not going to make a trade of any kind to help improve this roster and improve this rotation. He's just saying that they don't want to mortgage everything, right? And they don't want to potentially get a rental of a player or somebody who's not going to be a part of this thing long term, or somebody you have to pay this summer that you might not necessarily want to. Just make a trade that improves the roster marginally. We could look to the offseason maybe to make a big splash move. And I kind of agree with that, right? I agree with not sending out the first-round draft capital that you have on this team because with the uncertainty of Steph and Draymond late in their careers, Steph's contract is up after 2027. I wouldn't feel comfortable giving up any picks later than that. Plus, they're reluctant to give up Kuminga, so they don't want to do that either. I kind of agree with Steph, but I do still think that Golden State needs to make a trade. I still think that there is a trade out there worth making. And there's a couple of guys that we're going to talk about in the back half of today's video that really could make an impact for this Golden State Warriors team. So with that being said, let me know down in the chat. Let me know down in the comments section. Who is your guy? Name the player that you most want Golden State to trade for. It could be a big. It could be another scorer on the wing. It could even be another guard. Let me know what player you think would fit best on this Golden State Warriors roster and one that they could actually make a trade for at this point. Next up, we're going to get to that new trade report from Michael Scotto, the NBA insider, about some names that Golden State is keeping an eye on as the trade deadline nears closer and closer. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But first, I got to give a major shout out to today's sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports platform in the country. And I use it too. Oh, we've got over 10 million active members. You can win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks, watching your favorite sports in real time. It's so simple to play. And they're always trying to hook you up with incredible deals, like 50 free bucks in your account when you use our promo code CLNS after downloading the app and placing your first $5 entry. Now, I'm saying a bunch of things about winning all this money, but you don't even know how to place an entry yet. It's so simple. All you guys got to do is pick a lineup of 2 to 6 player stat projections and just pick more or less. You watch the money roll in real time. Here's what I have for the big football weekend ahead. The divisional round is here, and I got some picks for you guys. Patrick Mahomes, more than 250.5 passing yards. The superstars come out to play when the lights are the brightest. That's why I also have Derrick Henry, more than 96.5 rushing yards against the Bills, and then Josh Allen to light it up through the air, more than 1.5 pass TDs for 17. You could take my picks. You could fade my picks. Just make sure you go and do it at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use that promo code CLNS for $50 instantly when you place your first $5 entry. You don't even need to win to receive the $50. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. All that information is clickable down in the comments and the description of today's video. All right, let's get to it. The NBA insider Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype is linking Golden State to 4 players. Yes, 4 players that we'll talk about in the back half of today's show. Let's get right into the quote from Mr. Scotto. He said, "The Warriors have continued their due diligence on the trade market and inquired about potential front court upgrades, including Nikola Vucevic, John Collins, Jonas Valanciunas, and Robert Williams, according to league sources." He said the Warriors have also tapped in on guys like Jimmy Butler and Cam Johnson. However, those opportunities are less likely than they were before, and those kind of trade routes for Golden State are no longer really available. So that's where they're going to go from there. And I'll never forget you, Cam Johnson. If you guys know, I kind of flip-flop back and forth on whether or not I want to trade for Jimmy Butler, but I was always in on Cam Johnson. I wish he could have came to Golden State in that Schroeder deal, and maybe I wish they gave up Kuminga, maybe I don't, but man, 43% from 3 and a player who's only getting better year after year, I would like to see Cam Johnson in Golden State. But from my view overall, for the 4 names that Michael Scotto mentioned, I think I would trade for any one of them as long as the price was right. If you can get one of these guys without giving up Moses Moody or any first-round draft capital, I could deal with a swap potentially, but I'm not giving out any unprotected first-round picks for any of these guys. I would do it, no question. And let's start off talking about one of these guys, Nikola Vucevic, man, because He's one of those players where I think this is the most likely route that Golden State takes. He is probably the player that has the best combination of overall production and low enough trade value to where Golden State doesn't have to give up too much in any sort of deal. I mean, if you look at what he did this year, man, 43% from three-point range, you can't argue that. Like that is an element that this Golden State Warriors team does not currently have on their offense. You saw the glimpse of it with Quentin Post a couple days ago, and Steve Kerr liked that element that Vucevic brought to the table. But hey, they don't have it on the roster right now, and Quentin Post isn't coming up anytime soon to play long-term on the main roster. So trading for Nikola Vucevic could be a legitimate idea that Golden State goes around with. And what does a trade look like for Nikola Vucevic? Well, here's what we got. I got Nikola Vucevic coming to the Golden State Warriors, and this is actually via Bleacher Report, so you can get mad at them, not me. Bleacher Report says Nikola Vucevic comes to the Warriors for Kevon Looney, Gary Payton II, and Kyle Anderson. Money works out there, and you might be wondering, oh, maybe does Chicago want to take on long-term contract in Kyle Anderson? I could see them, wanting to do that, as long as they get these two expirings in Gary Payton II and Kevon Looney. Maybe you throw in a pick swap in the first round somewhere in the near future, maybe 2025. However, I would rather Golden State send away maybe a second-round pick or 2 second-round picks in this deal to kind of get it over the finish line. And that's why I think this feels like the most likely option, right? Because Chicago, they probably shouldn't want to be winning as many games as they are right now. They're kind of muddling around in that East play-in region. And in my opinion, they should be looking more towards the Cooper Flag sweepstakes than trying to make a postseason run because that team is not good enough. And, Bulls beat reporters, and Bulls insiders and NBA insiders have all said that this is a pretty likely possibility that Golden State could trade for Nikola Vucevic. Like, there's rumblings that this is a real possibility out there. So, hey, if Golden State wants to make this move, then I say go for it because I don't think it is going to cost too much at this point. Now, the next guy that we're going to talk about on today's list is John Collins. And John Collins is a player who can really stretch the floor for Golden State, man. Like, he's shooting an ungodly percentage from three-point range this year on pretty solid volume. And, he's one of those guys where, he does a little bit of both. He can rebound the basketball, not going to be your traditional five-man, but it's a player that overall helps this scoring punch for Golden State. They don't have reliable enough scoring on the roster right now. And John Collins has been, you could argue, the best player on the Utah Jazz so far this season. He's averaging 18 points a night, corralling 8 boards, shooting really, really efficiently from the floor. And, overall, like, he's a guy who can really boost this Golden State team, in my opinion. I think he's got enough defensive prowess to hold his own on that end as well. He's going to cost a lot, though. Yeah, he makes $26 million plus this year, about $26.5 million. So Golden State's going to have to corral together, 3 $8 to $9 million contracts on the roster right now. Is that possible? Yeah, but I think John Collins would also require a little bit more draft capital in any potential deal. And, maybe he would be the guy that probably requires the most assets given up by Golden State. Next, though, we'll talk about Jonas Valanciunas, who actually complete opposite of John Collins, right? Definitely your traditional five-man, more back to the basket, underrated playmaker, but the true glass cleaner, push shot around the rim, works great in the paint kind of guy. And this is a player who I just think is the most cost-efficient option for Golden State, right? He makes like a little less than $10 million this season, so it wouldn't be too much that Golden State has to recoup salary-wise. And he's not going to be a player that Washington's like begging to keep, right? He's not going to be somebody who's incredibly difficult to pry away from the Wizards. So I think it's a worthwhile trade to look at because you're not going to have to give up any draft capital. You're going to have to give up maybe an expiring deal in Gary Payton II and maybe something like Pat Spencer. Like you're not going to have to give up too much to go get Valanciunas. So I think if you really want to give up as minimal assets as you possibly can, then Valanciunas is no doubt the route to go with. However, an asset you might have to give up even less to go get Robert Williams, although he does make a little bit more than Jonas Valanciunas on his current deal. About $13.5 million is owed to him this season, so you have to make up probably a full 2 contracts worth that Golden State has on the books right now to make a trade for Robert Williams happen. And he's not really having a great year with the Portland Trailblazers, right? Like you would have thought that he would just continue with what he used to be with his Defensive Player of the Year high finish with Boston a couple of years ago, and the way that he was really improving his offensive game, stretches the mid-range a little bit. Hasn't really expanded upon any of that, and he's missed a ton of action. Like he's only getting 16.5 minutes per game up in Portland because they have a logjam in the front court with DeAndre Ayton and Donovan Clingan and other big men around there as well. Like you're not going to see too much from Robert Williams on a nightly basis, and maybe he is due for a bigger role in Golden State. But I like him. I think he's a great he's the best defender on this list. There's no doubt about it. You could argue he's the best rebounder if you put it over like a 36 minutes per game average. But I would be a little bit disappointed. He provides really nothing on offense outside of being a lob threat. And, you're not going to get much offensive creation from him. You won't be able to play 5 out. It doesn't really space the floor. So I'd be pretty disappointed if Robert Williams was the option that Golden State took. But pick one for me. Out of the names that we've talked about today, who would it be in your book? If it's Nikola Vucevic, give me an NV. If it's a Jonas Valanciunas, give me a JV. If it's a John Collins, give me a JC. And if it's a Robert Williams Time Lord, give me an RW down in the comments section. If you got another name that you want to talk about, hit me up on Twitter, on social media, at Smitty, at CS. We can talk about more Warriors ball over there. And like I said at the beginning of today's show, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Just passed 71,000 subscribers recently, and we could use more diehard Golden State Warriors fans right here on the channel. So hit that sub button. We'll see you in the next one. Let's go Dubs.